Okay, so I promised you this video. Last time we did the ELISA test and we looked at using the ELISA test to detect PSA and detecting HIV infection. Today we're going to look at how a pregnancy test works. So again, using monoclonal antibodies, but to detect the presence of the growth hormone that's found in the urine of a pregnant female. So, should we start? I'm a little bit nervous. Let's see if this goes okay. Right. Obviously, this is a pregnancy test strip. So the woman would urinate or put urine onto the end of the test strip. Now, if the woman is pregnant, there will be a hormone called HCG, which is a growth hormone present in the urine. So we're going to imagine the woman is pregnant and HCG is present in her urine. So this is my growth hormone here. Now, as the urine diffuses up the test strip, it's going to carry that HCG with it into our first zone. So this is our reaction zone. And in the reaction zone, there are mobile antibodies. So this is our first type of antibody. Mobile antibodies that can diffuse along the test strip. Now, these mobile antibodies, if I just draw some in here, these mobile antibodies are specific for this HCG, this hormone. They're monoclonal antibodies. They've all got the same tertiary structure. They're made from a clone of B cells. That's your definition. They can all bind to HCG. So the HCG is moving along, diffusing as the urine diffuses along the test strip. The HCG is going to be able to bind to these mobile antibodies. And these mobile antibodies have an enzyme attached to them. Okay, and that's going to be important to actually see the results of this pregnancy test. Now, these antibodies are mobile. So again, as the urine is diffusing along the test strip, the mobile antibodies are going to get moved with it. So they're going to move into the test zone. Okay. So the mobile antibodies have now moved into the test zone. The mobile antibodies have got the HCG attached to their antigen binding sites. In the test zone, we've got a second type of antibody. It's also complementary to HCG, so it can bind to the hormone, but these are immobile antibodies. So these are fixed in place in the test zone or in the test window, as you can call it. So I'm going to draw, these are the ones that are fixed in place, okay? And they are also complementary to HCG. So if HCG was present in the urine, HCG would have bound to the antigen binding sites on the mobile antibodies. HCG would have been carried up the test strip and it would have been able to bind to the immobile antibodies in the test zone. Now, in the test zone, there is the substrate for the enzyme. Now, because HCG was present and the first antibody has been able to bind to the second fixed antibody in the test zone, you've now got the enzyme present with the substrate. So you're going to get a reaction in the test zone, which is going to give a colour change. And a strip of colour in the test zone would indicate pregnancy. Because the only way to get that colour change would be if the enzyme was present in that test zone. And the only way for the enzyme to be present in that test zone is if HCG was present. Because if HCG was present in that woman's urine, it would have bound to the mobile antibody, which would have then been carried up the strip. And then the mobile antibodies would be able to bind via the HCG to the immobile antibodies, fixing them in place. So you've fixed the enzyme where the substrate is and you've got a colour change. Now, in the control zone, this is going to show us, has the test worked? And in the control zone, we've got a third antibody. Again, it's an immobile antibody that is fixed in place in the control zone. Now, this antibody will bind to any of the mobile antibodies that did not get fixed in the test zone. And because there's such an excess of mobile antibodies here, even if the woman is pregnant and some of them did bind to HCG and some of them did get fixed in the test zone, there'll still be such an excess of these mobile antibodies, like for example here, because there was such an excess, these ones didn't bind to any HCG, they will continue moving along the test strip as the urine diffuses along, and they will get fixed in place here. Because this third immobile antibody in the control zone is complementary to the first mobile antibody. So again, you've now got enzymes fixed in place in the control zone where there is a substrate for those enzymes. The enzymes have been fixed in place with the substrate, so you'll get a reaction and you'll get a colour change. And that is simply to show you that the test has worked and that the mobile antibodies were successfully moving along or diffusing along the test strip. You'll get a colour change in the test zone if pregnant and the control zone if pregnant to show that the test has worked. Now let's just imagine no pregnancy, yeah, just to make sure we fully understand this. If the woman is not pregnant, there's no HCG in the urine. So no HCG is moved into the reaction zone. So the mobile antibodies will move into the test zone. They will not be able to bind to the fixed antibodies in the test zone because there's no HCG for the mobile antibodies to bind to. So they will just sail on past and there'll be no enzyme fixed. They will keep on moving. They will keep on moving along because there's no HCG, so they couldn't bind to the immobile antibodies in the test zone. They'll keep moving along, but they can bind to the immobile antibodies in the control zone. So you'll still get a colour change in this window, even if not pregnant, because these fixed antibodies just bind to the immobile antibodies, okay? These are the ones in this test zone. The immobile antibodies that are fixed here will only bind to the first antibody if it had HCG bound to it. How do we feel about this one, guys? I hope I've explained that well enough. Again, it's really just about understanding antibodies and how they bind to proteins. In this case, it's a growth hormone. But if that hormone is present, just to reiterate, I feel like I need to say it again. If that hormone is present, it will bind to the mobile antibodies here, which means those antibodies will bind to the antibodies in the test zone. So you will get enzyme substrate together and you will get a colour change in the test zone. Any free antibodies that did not bind in the test zone will carry on to the control zone and they will bind to the third antibody, which is fixed here. So you will get enzyme with substrate and you would get a colour change in the control window as well, just to show the test has worked. Hopefully, now we've done kind of 3 examples of using monoclonal antibodies. This is starting to make sense, but let me know how you feel about this in the comments.